Hey, welcome to Spiritual Vacancy. We are a podcast to help fill your spiritual void. My name is Brooke Ann. I'm a psychic medium and a Reiki practitioner, and I am with the lovely.
Hello there. Hello. I'm Mona Lee. I'm an energy healer from Mind, Body, and Spirit, owner of Beautiful Mind in South Carolina. So excited to be here to talk about our subject matter today, Brooke. And what in the world was it or is it that we are talking about today?
We're going to be talking about orbs and maybe spiritual phenomenon or things that me and Mona have experienced that are pretty cool or crazy or that you really can't explain besides it just being spirit showing up for us.
Yes, I love this subject matter because I have to say that orbs have been a past addiction of mine when I would watch them. And for those that are not familiar with orbs, you can't really see them you can't see them with your naked eye. You've got to have a camera. You've got to have a camera. I used to have an iPad that I would watch them with, and my cats were the ones that would lead me to the orbs. There are times in the Zen den where I would start meditating, light a candle, light some incense, just always like bringing up the vibes in the Zen den because that's my spiritual space. And all of a sudden, when the cats, two cats at a time, looking in the same directions, going whoop, whoop with their eyes, right? And just looking from one corner to the next. And that's when I would get the clue that, hey, we got some orbs here. And that's when turning on the camera and just videoing what's happening and just seeing the white lights that were just bouncing from one side of the wall to the next. And it's fascinating. But
Yes.
what have you experienced, Brooke, with your visions and phenomenon?
I'm obsessed with orbs too because it's so cool when you go to look back at your videos or your photos and you're like, oh my God, that was spirit, because it's always like a thicker white color because you could tell the difference between a bug or, if somebody's shaking out a blanket, there's going to be dust particles. That's not orbs. It has to have intention. They move with intention. But one of the most spectacular orbs I caught this was I don't even know how many years ago. Our son was maybe 9 or 10. He's 22 now. So trying to put it in perspective. And my husband's family is from Maine. And I didn't realize, but in Maine, you can't do services because their ground is hard. So you can't bury anybody until the spring. So I learned something new there. I didn't know that. And so he actually passed away in the winter months, my husband's grandfather. And we went up into Maine in May, and it was very hot. It was very humid in May, and their mosquitoes are like their state bird. But anyways, get to what the orbs are. I was taking a photo, and this is from an older camera. Our phones weren't as great. So we actually had to develop the stuff. And I took a family photo in the yard of one of his family members' houses, and there is a huge orb. It looks like a moon above everybody's head, and you can actually see through it. So you can see the plants on the house behind it. It's a perfect circle. It's like a shaded white color, and it's just there. And I took 2 pictures back to back, and it was gone in the next one. So I know that was his grandfather being there with us as we celebrated his memory and did the memorial. And that was kind of cool because as they were doing the service, it was raining all day. And as soon as we got to the service, it cleared up and the sun shined, all the clouds parted. And I was like, that is such your grandfather. But that was the biggest orb I have ever seen. I have it on my Facebook page. If you guys go look at Spiritual Medium Brooke Ann, you can actually scroll through the photos, and I have the photo up of the orb. And it is huge. But then I
That's
also have other
fascinating.
videos of orbs where, they're around my dogs, or I'll be sitting in my house and I'll record, and it will literally come to you with intention, like it's not a bug.
And you know what's amazing is that you hit the nail on the head with intention. There was one day my brother was over and we were by the Zen den and we were watching Orbs and he had his camera and I had my camera. And then we were singing, literally just being goofy and playful. We were singing old church songs like Rock of Ages, Left for Me, and old church songs. And all of a sudden these orbs just showed up out from the corner where we have all the guitars and the drums and the instruments. And we used to sing in church when we were kids, and all of these orbs were so happy. And they just showed up, like tons of them just coming out of the walls by the instruments. And at that same time, too, you bring up dogs too. The orbs love children and they love dogs. I bet if anyone goes out there and they look at their family photos of where their children or their pets are, they're going to find some orbs if they really pay attention, because they are surrounding them with love. It's amazing. And the dog, I want to share one story about the dog that this was not such a funny one at that moment, because my daughter was very homesick one day and she had a really, really high fever. And I came in and and the doggie was snuggling with her on the bed and just comforting her. And I filmed the dog and her just singing a little love song to her. And all of a sudden it was like a snow flurry of orbs. And it wasn't from the blanket shake. It was because there was no movement. It was just, there was a snow flurry of orbs all over the place that was just there for loving vibrations. Because at the same time, we're playing, we're singing, we're praying. God, please come in and heal this little baby girl and let her fever go away. And thank you for the doggy being here to love on her. And I talk about love. Oh my goodness. It
Yeah.
was, the room was full. The room was full of these little beings.
Yeah, it's so cool when you see them, but yeah, you can't see them with your eye. The naked eyes, it has to be on some kind of like camera or video. And I do want to say, when people go to the beach or you take photos in the sun and
Mhm.
you see that blue dot, that is not spirit. That is
Mhm.
a lens flare that
Mhm.
reflects back, because a lot of people think when they're outside taking photos that that's actually an orb. It's not. It's been
Mhm.
proven through a lot of different things where you want to think that that's spirit, but it's not. And it's always like a blue, and it's in every photo. So the difference with spirit, it's not going to be in every photo.
Mm.
It won't be repetitive like that with an orb, especially at the beach. So I do want to let people know, if all your photos have a blue dot in it, it's a sun flare. It's a sun
Mm.
reflection in your camera or phone. It's not
On
actually
the
spirit.
camera. That's interesting because sometimes there's little green reflections and whatnot. But this past weekend, I went to my niece's wedding, and they allowed us to take pictures before the preacher came up to do the ceremony. And there was a beam of light coming through, and I was like, "Oh, that's a pretty little beam of light just dappling through the trees." And then all of a sudden, there was, and it wasn't an orb either, but it was a big dome of blue light around them. But I kept it still, but the dome of light was like going expanding and then getting smaller. What was that? Because right after, I want to share with you, this is so
Yeah.
interesting because I really want to look into this, because right after that moment when they announced the women as partners for life, and they were just all of a sudden, and I know my niece's wife had her, oh, I'm getting angel bumps, but her mother had passed years ago, and she asked and prayed for her mother to be there. And I know she was there
Oh,
because all of a sudden a little white feather came
oh,
by and just landed between them and then just landed. Oh, my whole body is filled with
yeah,
angel bumps
that was
now.
definitely her.
No, that's her. That was her. That was
Yeah.
definitely her.
Yeah.
Fascinating, fascinating. But and it wasn't an orb of light that was over them,
Right.
but it was like they were in this dome of blue, expansive light that was like hovering around them. I'll have to
Oh,
send you a picture of it.
yeah.
It's so
That's
beautiful.
awesome though. I don't think that's really the lens flare. Like if anybody Googles like a lens glare or a lens flare, it's just a bright blue tealish circle. It's like a dot.
Okay.
but it'll be in every photo. And that's
Mhm.
where spirit does not show up in every photo. That's why you'll get an orb in one photo and then it's gone in the next, or, you'll be looking through all your photos and it's only in one. Spirit's quick. The orbs
Mhm.
are quick, so it's not going to
Mhm.
hang out, but the lens flare I'm talking about doesn't move like that. It's
Okay.
not like a dome, it's actually like a dot.
Mm.
So that is interesting. That could be like her mom's spirit showing she's protecting, she's,
I
proud
felt
of the
that.
relationship, like that she's,
Yes.
her soul is there watching over them, protecting them in this special time. But
I
yeah,
felt it. I felt it so strongly. And it was literally about 95 degrees outside in the park, sun glaring, and I had major angel bumps from head to toe, like
right.
tension. It was bizarre.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
definitely spirit. And then the
Oh
white
yeah.
feather is spirit. That's the spirit sends feathers and coins and all kinds of stuff to get our attention. And yeah, that's her.
Yeah,
It's their
yeah.
mom. Yeah.
Amazing. I want to talk about the colors because you talked about colors of orbs. I had once noticed when I was doing some orb viewing in my Zen den again with a roommate, and we were looking at it, and we had different this. She had like a red one come by, and was it red or purple? But it was a different colored orb that was in amongst the white orbs that were in the room, and we looked them up, and each color represents a different energy spirit, a different
Okay.
energy of spirit. So perhaps the red was anger, frustration, or
Or
yellow
love,
could be sickness, or it could be like passion or love or
right?
something. But that's an interesting thing to maybe look into as well as as our listeners, just encourage people to look in what are the colors of the orbs. I know primarily they're white. They tend to
They
be white.
are. Primarily they're white or almost like a translucent type of color.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're gray, or sometimes they might be a darker color like black, which still doesn't mean that they're negative.
Mhm.
You never want to put a negative connotation with spirit, because unless you're a negative person, I guess you could, but you never want to do that. You always want to turn it in, like with the red, I would say it's loving. I wouldn't go
Mhm.
anger, because spirit's not mad. That's a human emotion. Like spirit's not going to
Mhm.
show up angry unless you're angry. So maybe if that person's angry, maybe they will show up as like a red color, but I would turn it into a positive, as that's a loving,
Mhm.
passionate, soul that's coming through, or like purple's intuition, or, maybe that's your spiritual side or things like that. But what's interesting, so I have a client and she has an office in Surfside, and she'll send me these videos that her cameras take inside of her building, and the spirits always turn her monitors on, and
Mm.
then you can see the orbs flying around her space. And it
Ah,
is so cool because it's like pitch
mhm.
black in there. And then you got the only light is from the computer monitor that like somebody would have to touch or turn on, because it's not going to
Yes.
turn on. It doesn't happen all the time. But the last one she sent me was a darker orb. And she goes, "Should
Yeah.
I be scared of that?" And I'm like, "No, do not
Mm.
put fear into
Mhm.
spirit. It's not good.
Mhm.
Your
Mhm.
your space is awesome. I've been to her space. It's such a
Yeah.
good feeling. Just know that they're just showing up in a different way for you.
Yeah.
To get your
Mhm.
attention. But it's so cool, the video she sends me.
It's amazing what can be caught on camera. I had a Ring camera in my backyard, and there was a time that I was on a vacation in Florida, and I had checked up. I kind of check up and see what's happening and pick at, just peek at the Ring camera. But then it only really dings and sends that notification if there's something going on. So I don't just look to go, oh, what's going on? But I just, I would look whenever it would give me that little ding going, all right, is the wind blowing or what? And it was a time where my mother was here, she was out of the Tao temple at the time, and she does like in her ritual and her prayers in the morning, she'll pray and she would do 1,000 vows in her heart, every morning. And it was literally right when the prayers were finished, and she prays to the ascended masters, to Jesus, to Buddha, to Qigong, to Maitreya, to all of the ascended masters. And I saw the rainbows of beams of light shining down into the yard. And at that time, my best friend Paul was outside working with the yard and burning debris and things. And I thought, well, is it smoke? Is it, what is it? What is it? And it was literally just beams of light. And
Wow.
you could see it separate from where he was. It was so bizarre, but the Ring camera that is something that people can pay attention to, is see what's happening in their Ring camera, because there is stuff that can be seen that will alert you. And
Yes, which I think
yeah.
that's awesome. Can you
Mm.
record on, I don't have a Ring. Can you record on it or no? Is there any
It
way to set
records,
that?
there's a setting where it'll record what's happening whenever it's happening. You can check it out, and then you can save the video.
Okay.
Yes, and there's ways to save the video. So I've got videos in my Ring camera saved. There was
Oh,
another time there was a spiritual retreat that was happening, and I had like I think 10 or 12 people or more that had a sleepover. And after they cleared, I was just praying for them to just take themselves and take their stuff and go, as far as all the spirits and all the things that came with them, so that the house can be cleared as I was gonna, do the saging and cleansing and clearing. And another time, the Ring camera showed up with a bunch of white movement.
that's awesome.
And I thought, wow, that's really bizarre how spirit shows up.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you believe in fairies?
Oh, absolutely.
Me too.
Absolutely. I believe that, especially when we're working in our gardens and we're picking weeds, and and just working with the flowers, sometimes if we feel a little ting and it's not really a bug, that could be the little fairies going, hey. But
Yeah.
I always ask permission of the fairies that, let me work with the flowers, and I'm here to take care of the land, and thank you for allowing me to be here, and we're here together. And I do believe in fairies.
I do too. I
Yeah.
believe too. I believe like one of my friends has a little fairy garden she made, and she's
Hmm.
very much into her garden, and her garden just flourishes.
Isn't it
It's
amazing?
just
I have a fairy
yeah.
garden too. I every once to twice a year, I feel like a little girl playing, like I feel like a 4 or 5 year
Yeah.
old little girl, just, taking everything out and setting it back up like it's a little playhouse, but it's just so sacred. It's just so beautiful
Mhm.
to have the crystals and the rocks and the feathers and the birds and the fairies and the little gnome houses. And I love my fairy garden. I honor them, because I feel like they are amongst us as well.
They are. I totally believe in fairies too. I haven't
Yeah.
caught any on camera,
Mhm.
but I
I
know
haven't
some
either.
people do, like in their Ring camera or like whatever camera they have at night where it's like the little tiny, I mean you could see the wings and it's
Oh.
nothing else flying around at night
Oh,
and it's
I've
like
never
the
seen them
fairy.
before. I've never seen them before, but I would love to, that's for sure. But I believe in them. I feel the love. They're just a beautiful little frequency of love.
Yes. And then like it's crazy because you'll catch like spirit images or faces on your video because like a long time ago we were renting a townhome and I had taken a selfie of me and my dog in the kitchen
Mhm.
and I had the back door open so it was just this glass storm door and I caught a man's face
Mm,
in the storm door, but he's not like a family member, like, that would have passed or was physically living at some point. I didn't recognize him. So I'm like, maybe he's like a spirit guide, or maybe it's like from somebody previous lived at that property, but it wasn't a bad feeling. It just kind of caught me off guard when I went to go look at the photos. Cause like I said, I took a bunch back to back and it was only in the one. And then it's
mm,
like, oh my God, that's like a man's face. Like you could see like the
mm.
facial hair and his hair and the eyes
Oh.
and the face shape. And it was crazy because I was trying to debunk it like I always do. Like there's got to be like a rational, is it a shadow? But my back was turned to it. So I'm like, it's
Mhm.
not my face because
Mhm.
my back was turned to the glass. Because, then you think
Wow.
maybe it's my own reflection, but there's no way. And it was
Yeah.
just me in the dog's home. So I know
Wow.
nobody else was in the house to have that reflection, but it's cool how spirit will
Yeah.
show up in the craziest places or
Mm.
when you least expect it.
So bizarre. That's amazing. That's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. What about shadowy figures? Do you ever see shadowy figures? Because sometimes when I'm working, or before and after that I'm working with some people, sometimes I'll see a little tiny little shadowy movement, but I look very quickly and then I don't see anything, but then I sense something there. But it's not scary. It's not a bad thing. It's not a scary thing at all. But I just feel
No.
like I talk to them like, thank you.
Yeah,
Like,
I do too.
I
I
know you're here.
agree.
Thanks. I love you.
I think they're like giving us a little wink. It's always in the corner of your eye, like you'll
Yeah.
catch it. You're like, oh, what was that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah.
always that corner of your eye where they're just like, they're not going to show their whole self to us, but
Mm,
just enough for us to know that they're there.
yeah.
Yep,
Absolutely.
same.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, like you said with when you were at that wedding this weekend and her mom, dropped the feather. There was one
Mhm.
time when I was at the beach. Jeremy was surfing. It was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And my best friend Jen, her dad had passed away. And he was like my best friend. Like I loved him like a best friend. Like he was so great. And I was missing him and I was talking to him and I went down to the beach and I'm like, Pops, if you're around, send me a heart-shaped shell. And I am not even freaking joking. Like I started crying after it happened. I was looking for shells and I was collecting shells because I was actually doing a shell project. And I went to go pick up a shell, and I'm not even lying. A shell hits me in my shoulder,
Mm.
bounces off my shoulder, and hits the ground and lands in front of me, and it's a heart-shaped shell. Well, I come up and I'm looking around. There was nobody on the beach for miles. Nobody. And
Wow.
they're like, how would a shell just drop out of the sky and hit me in the shoulder and then hit right in front? And I still have the heart-shaped shell.
Mm.
And Jeremy was surfing because when it hit me, I thought Jeremy was like kind of messing with me, like, I see you, because he didn't even know I was coming down to the beach. I just knew he was surfing. And I started crying because that was like, I had asked for the sign and he literally hit me with the shell. And I'm like, you cannot make this shit up. Like, this is
Yeah.
freaking amazing.
Yeah.
When we talk to our loved ones or spirit, they show up. And there was like
Mhm.
no denying that, like at
Mhm.
all. Like, I was in shock and I started videoing to tell my experience. I have a TikTok about it, but I wish somebody would have been videoing me to just see where the shell came from.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
shell just can't drop out of the sky. Like I
Right.
wasn't even close to the water. So it's not like it flew out of the water and like hit me.
Mm.
And it just happened to be a heart-shaped shell that
Yeah.
landed right in front of me.
Yeah.
So that is what is amazing about spirit. Spirit is so
Fascinating.
strong and just wants to be seen so badly.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, it's fascinating. There's so many things. There's even at my brother's funeral, my oldest brother's funeral when he had passed, and my brother was sitting in the funeral, and he was on just one side, but there's nobody around him. And he put, and in Thailand, they burn a wooden rose, they place it on the casket, so they do the cremation process that way. And when he came back down to sit down after he burnt his wooden rose, he sat down and he felt a tap on his hip and nobody was around him. And that's what our brother would do. He would like hit us on the butt or hit us on the hip to say, hey. And it was so fascinating that that's how spirit showed up at that time, through that tap. So we just pay attention and just even know that they are so near and so dear and our loved ones, and it's just incredible, whether they are our family members, whether they are our spirit guides, whether they are other ones, loved ones, whether they are just these fairies or orbs of light and orbs of love. It's pretty amazing. And I want to encourage ourselves to stay with our frequencies vibing high, because in the spirit world, their frequencies and vibrations run higher than the human,
Yep.
vibrations do. So love is one of the highest frequency vibrations that we can hold, and just having that peace so
Yeah.
that we can see them and feel them and sense them and know that they are here.
Yep. It's
Yeah.
true. And animals are so sensitive to spirit
Mm.
and
Mhm.
so in tune with spirit. And I do believe that animals can reincarnate before us. So like in your lifetime, your one soul animal might come back again in this lifetime. And an example of that is my dog Roxy. My husband had a dog named Buffy growing up. And when we went to the Humane Society, Jeremy said, I'm going to find a dog that reminds me of Buffy. And he did. He went into the Humane Society and went into the employees only section, which he was not allowed to go in. And he brought Roxy out. And I'm
Mm.
like, where did you find her? He's like, oh, I went in, I don't know why, but I wanted to go into the employee only section. And he's like, but she looks just like my dog Buffy. And I'm telling you, when I saw pictures of his dog Buffy, it looked just like Roxy, just a different gender. Buffy was a
Mm.
male, Roxy's a female.
Yeah.
But what the craziest thing was, Roxy was abused by her previous family, so she did not like men. She really didn't like men with hats. She would bark crazy at any guy that came near us. But Jeremy's brother and his nephew, she didn't bark once. It's
Mm.
like she already knew them. It was so
Yeah.
crazy. And I'm like, she
Wow.
barks at everybody else and she didn't even freak out over the two guys that she just met. And they're
Yeah.
related to Jeremy. She didn't bark at Jeremy. Like she
Mm.
let Jeremy take her.
Yeah.
And she lived till she was 16.
Mm.
And 2 days before we had to make the decision because she had cancer, and I have witnesses, but I don't have video because I was too emotional. Because we knew we were going to have to make that decision. But I just wanted one more weekend with her, before, because the vet told us she was deteriorating quickly. But I have witnesses because she touched so many lives, my dog. Like so many people came over to say goodbye to Roxy. And two of my friends, Jen and Bree, were over here. There were 14 cardinals outside
Mm.
my backyard in one tree. And it was almost like all the little animal souls were like supporting us on our decision. I have never seen that many cardinals in one place, and we
Mm.
counted them. But I was too
Wow.
emotional. I was crying. It was a really hard weekend.
Yeah.
And to see all those cardinals just was like, wow,
Mm.
it's just amazing. Like maybe those were like past lives, of animals I've had, or I don't know how it was, but it was just beautiful to witness. Like they were even saying bye to her. Like it was just crazy. And
Mm.
I was like, oh
Mm.
my God, what a great thing for me to witness too before
Yes.
having to make that right decision, having to
Yes.
make the decision for her. But yes, I do
Absolutely.
believe animals are very connected to spirit and are
Oh,
very
yes.
connected to us from past lives or even our current life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they're known to be the first ones to meet us and greet us too. One of the first ones to come and meet us and greet us when we crossed over that lovely rainbow bridge, as they
Yep.
have crossed over before us. They're there for us. So
Yeah,
yes.
seriously.
So, oh my goodness, how wonderful. Well, I'm so glad that we had shared stories of the phenomenal things that have happened in the angel world, the spirit world, the orbs, the light, the feathers, the cardinals, the animals. It's just such a blessing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Very. So pay attention to those signs, guys, and let
Yes.
us know if you have any videos of orbs or what are your experiences, because we would love to hear.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for being here and allowing us to fill your spiritual void. And may you just be filled with lots of love and lots of peace and go find some orbs. Woohoo!
Yes. Well, you guys, we hope you all have a beautiful day, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds great.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.